tips and tricks. Learn about the color wheel. That's a really big, basic thing. Actually, when you're in Resolve and you see the lift, gamma, gain circles and dials, which is basically lift is shadows, gamma is midtones, and gain is highlights. So you'll see the color wheel embedded in those different tools. So you can manipulate all of those. So if you're in a warehouse and it's very green because they're using crappy fluorescence or LEDs or whatever, it'll show you this sway to blue, and on the other side of that is orange, and on the on the flip side you've got magenta and you've got green. I think it's the other way around. But the color wheel is important, and it's important not only for artists, but it's important for colorists. The Waveform Monitor is probably my #1 go-to tool in addition to the RGB Parade. Those two really go hand in hand for me. I use the Waveform Monitor for overall contrast. I actually turn off the RGB visuals on the Waveform Monitor within Resolve because it really gives me a better idea of if the image were black and white, where's the whites, where's the blacks, where's the midtones, without bogging into the color data. And then I go to the RGB Parade and I look at the color data. So usually I'll set contrast first, and I use the Parade to set white balance, and that has worked for me for a long time. After I do those two things, I use the vector scope, which is a measurement of saturation, a visualization of your saturation. That's a really good tool for checking to make sure you haven't taken it too far. If you're coloring for broadcast and you go outside of, since it's a circle and it has different colors at each point like this, those little squares where they're just visually in the vector scope, if you go outside of those bounding boxes, you are outside of broadcast safe. That's changing. That's not as big a deal anymore, but it is a pretty good indicator of if your vector scope is showing that red is far outside of this bounding box area, you're probably overly saturated. Same for green, magenta, whatever you want. It's a pretty good tool to make sure you stay in a good place saturation wise. So those three scopes are a super big deal to me. They are a way for me to not rely on my eyes fully, since as we know our eyeballs change white balance all the time, and it's a way for me to double check myself. I'm not a big fan of Luts. They are not a one-size-fits-all solution. A lot of people buy them and sell them, and for some people it works really well. But if I'm going to use a LUT, I'm going to use it a camera manufacturer's LUT for that camera, for the color space it was shooting in, to Rec. 709. Aside from that, I like to use these two hands and make my color happen in Resolve, and I can actually, instead of sending a LUT, if I need to send something and the other person's using Resolve, you can send them a still, and that maintains all the nodes and structures, so everyone can just make adjustments on the existing nodes and not lose any information. That being said, LUTs do fulfill the solution of I can send this from editor to editor in Premiere, yada yada yada, but it's not a perfect solution. I find them very limiting and unpredictable. So I rarely use them. If things have changed, please let me know.